All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome. It is my pleasure, my honor to be joined today by a fellow advocate and ambassador for a global community of HIV and AIDS, but focused very much in Zimbabwe. Here today with Maxwell Changombe, who currently works as a program coordinator for Restless Development Zimbabwe. He's an incredible leader. He is working with the GenEndIt Youth Ambassador Group as well, which is a UNAIDS program that consists of diverse groups of young people leading to fight and end HIV and AIDS as a global pandemic by 2030. This is something that we're all involved with. And it's just such a pleasure to reach around this globe and be able to speak to different passionate individuals and young minds around this. So Maxwell, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much.
So, I mean, man, to be honest, there's probably so much we could dive into, but what I loved when I first, so you and I spoke through GenEndIt, and
Yeah.
we had a nice panel discussion, but still, I think those are like, they're very regimented, and sometimes we have to stick to time, and we don't get really the opportunity to like really get to know people.
Yeah.
I think what excited me most was, the first thing when I was like, okay, like Maxwell works with Restless Development, and I was just that message of restless development was just like burning in my mind. So like, tell us what's up with Restless Development. What goes on within the organization?
So Restless Development, it's all about youth leadership, having young people responding to emerging issues in their communities. So you talk about HIV/AIDS, SRI issues, climate change, leadership, anything that really affects young people. Restless Development is all about trying to build the capacity of young people to be able to respond to emerging issues happening in their communities. So whether it's responding to different issues ranging from Ebola in Ebola in Sierra Leone, coming to typhoid in Zimbabwe, all those issues, even malaria. So we're just there to build the leadership capacities of young people to respond to emerging issues happening in their different communities. So in short, Restless Development is all about youth leadership. Young people are claiming their agents to solve issues happening in their communities. Yeah.
Dude, that's amazing. What I love about it, just like off the top, is that instead of going like, this is a cause and we're gonna fight and we're gonna focus on this one issue, you're really taking a community approach, and it's like arm youth with the education, the strength, the knowledge to let their voice be heard, to advocate, both on a community level and, I was doing some reading, I think on a governmental level as well, having a voice within different policy structure. And and now they're armed to like deal with whatever problems face them in life.
Yeah, so that's what we are all about. So if you look at Restless Development, it's an agent led by different hubs. So we are in Zimbabwe. You find us in Tanzania, in Nepal, in India. You find in those different countries there are different issues that are affecting young people in their different contexts, in their different diversities. So for as an agent, for us to really focus on one specific issue, it's kind of difficult because young people they face different challenges. So what we have to do is to build the capacities of young people to respond to those issues, whether it's issue relating to education, young people should have a voice in that area, whether it's relating to health, young people should have a voice in that area, whether they are talking about civic education on its own. We really want young people to get involved. So Restless Development is all about young people. That's why we are saying everything that we do is powered by young people.
It's amazing. And I feel like it's like so much easier for young people to relate as young people versus relate through whatever issues we face in our life. Because it's so much, we walk different experiences. We have different circumstances in our life, but at the end of the day, we all know what it's like to be a young person trying to figure out who we are in this world. And so I really appreciate taking it back to like the roots of how you change behavior and perspective from a young person's point of view to challenge and advocate for whatever their hurdles might be in their life. And I think as an organization, I mean, to me, I also see so much of restless development also going against the grain, like being a little edgy, being able to bring in like some lifestyle and not necessarily stick to the mold that we're so used to from like 30 years ago to now. I mean, I know we are very much involved in HIV and AIDS and that focus to end HIV and AIDS as a global pandemic by 2030. I think that groups like Restless Development are just obviously so key to creating an opportunity for that experience to actually manifest in our world. In your opinion, like, what are some of the biggest changes that we need to be really focusing on and challenging to be able to reach those kinds of goals?
Yeah, I think that's huge. If you are talking about HIV and AIDS, you really want to end AIDS as a global pandemic by 2030, it's really a difficult challenge. We really need to find the market. We really need to find those who are involved. Right now, we have a youth bulge, a large number of young people that we have. That's a lot of positive energy that's floating around. So what's really needed is to channel that positivity to create positive behavior, change attitudes, change perceptions that can really contribute to ending HIV and AIDS. It's really up to young people to really drive the agenda of ending AIDS by 2030 because they are the majority right now. So for Restless Development, it's really a big deal to ensure that young people, they are really involved in everything that has to do with ending AIDS. Working with young people in their diversity. Young people, they come from different backgrounds, different diversity. Anything that we can talk about, we really need not to leave any young person behind. So the agenda of ending AIDS by 2030, it really needs young people to be really focused. It really needs young people to have their energy channeled towards ending AIDS. There are many issues that really drive, that can really help us to end AIDS, or issues that really drive the new infections around the world. So you really find that inequalities on its own, it's really a big issue that's happening around the world. And for that to end, we really need young people's voices in that. We really need young people's, not voices only, but actions, to change attitudes and behaviors towards other young people, even the communities. So I think for us as Restless Development, we really focus on the young people because we are really living in a peak youth generation where with large number of young people, that's a lot of positivity, lots of energy. So if channeled correctly, it can really help us achieve those agendas that we had set. For example, this one of ending AIDS by 2030.
No, first, I mean, so well said. Okay, hold on. But two things that you keyed on right there. So one, you said we have to find the market.
Yeah.
So when we're talking about finding the market and getting youth not just involved, but activated.
Yes.
In order to do that, I mean, I know when I was a kid, like it had to speak to me as like a lifestyle. Like if someone came into my classroom when I was a kid to try to educate me on something that I might not be interested in, if they weren't like wearing a pair of Vans or a pair of Converse, I was like I'm not going to talk to you. So like, it's also, who's the messenger and like what's that experience? And I think from what I see, I mean, even just looking at like the posters behind you right now, I mean,
yes.
I look at that and I'm like, okay, this is Restless Development. I'm seeing real young people. It's lifestyle driven. It looks like a bit of a fashion shoot in a way, and it changes the perception of young people of like, what does this conversation even look like, and is it a space that allows you to engage? I think it's easy to be it's easy to be clinical in this because this is a medical issue. But when you say find that market, I think it's also understanding the market of like who we're talking to and how we're marketing this issue to them. And so that's in your, like, I've watched a few of your interviews and I've seen some of the events that you've been a part of locally within your community, but also through through GenEndIt. And do you think that like even the language and the look and the feel of this discussion has to evolve?
Yes, definitely. Yeah, I think you said it right there. The market, when you really refer to the market, it's not about bringing in the technical people to really look into this, but when we're talking about the market, the way you address young people, the way you approach young people, that really need to change. The way you talk to them, we really need to to really relate to them. What do they really want? How do they interact? Where do they interact? Where can you find them, young people?
Mm.
They really need those things. How are young people interacting in their different contexts? If it's online, how can we get young people? What platforms are young people using? If it's in person, where can we find young people? What issues are affecting them? You really need to feel, you need to be in a position to really understand the issues that young people are facing. You really need to relate to what young people really need. You really need to speak the language that young people are using. So those are different issues that you really need to understand if you are to capture young people. We know young people have different requirements, they are diverse. And these days we are a digital generation, so many young people online, you really need to understand them. How best can you capture them? Where can you capture them? When can you capture them? How often can you capture them? What kind of content should you deliver on, should you give them? So that really needs to be understood. Young people, they are very diverse. One thing that you give to another group, it's not something another group will really require. So that's really different. So we really need to understand the market, that is the young people.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you even just like look at like the radio, right? There's
Yeah,
there's
yeah,
frequencies, there's frequencies for all different kinds of music,
exactly,
and they all speak to
exactly.
different communities depending on what they like. It's you make a really good point of understanding the actions, the spaces, the interests of these young communities. Do you guys work with local partners, and like I'm curious like what your activations are like through Restless Development that really capture young people in an impactful way?
Yes, so for Restless Development, we really work with local partners. We really work on the ground ourselves. We had the boots on the ground in the grassroots levels. Looking at partners, we really have our youth collective, which really help us to expand our reach, our networks with young people in different areas. So as Restless Development, we really also build the capacities of our partners or local partners to be really able to capture young people, that meaningful and inclusive engagement of young people. How can they best engage young people into different conversations that really matter to them? On the other hand, we really have our staff members that really work on the ground, supporting young people to respond to emerging issues in their communities. So we have a very diverse group of young people whom we work with. We work with youth researchers, those young people who collect evidence in communities that we can use in terms of HIV programming, evidence that we can use for evidence-based lobbying and advocacy. We have young people who act as reporters. For example, if you are talking about we are approaching election, young people who collect issues happening on the ground. So we have young reporters on the ground. We have young leaders leading sexual reproductive health, comprehensive sexuality education sessions with in-school youth, out-of-school youth. We have youth advocates, we have youth ambassadors. So we work with the different groups of young people and also networks from different communities, different government departments. That's how best we are trying as an agent to reach a diverse group of young people. So you might work in Nigeria where we don't have an office, but you'll find so many organizations affiliated to your youth collective who use our methodologies to deliver programs on the ground. So as Restless Development, we really know we can't be everywhere, but if you really use the youth collective approach, we can really reach so many young people as possible if we are working as a collective.
Well, and I even think just like it's everything from we're a visual species, right? We see things and we start by judging those things, and we're like, does this speak to me? Does it not? for me, immediately when I heard and saw Restless Development, I was like, yep, that speaks to me. Because I remember when I was a teenager, I mean, even still, like, yeah, you get restless. You want to push against the grain. You want to find, ways to, it's like natural as a teenager to even want to rebel, right? And like, how do you
Yeah.
create a healthy way to rebel by like sharing your own story, or maybe being like, that's not for me, but this is, in a different healthy way. And I think that that concept of like giving youth an opportunity to drive the conversation as a community themselves. I mean, from everything that you're saying, it's youth speaking to youth. I mean, they have the answers, right? They know what they like, they know what their community wants and doesn't want. So I mean, I think big part of this is a message to everybody in all communities and organizations that are working towards these 2030 goals. We have to put much more energy into empowering youth as stakeholders in the decision making process of what this looks like, what this sounds like, and how these programs are going to continue growing within your community in order for it to actually succeed.
Yes, yes, correct. I think you are right there. What's really needed is support, mentorship, you know, believing in young people in whatever they are doing. That's really critical. Young people, we really need to give them a chance to succeed and to fail, to learn from their failures. Sometimes that helps them build better. We really need to give young people full information, up to date information, comprehensive information that can really enable them to make real life choices, better life choices. That's very critical. So young people need the support. Young people need the mentorship. This will help them build their capacity to act as leaders in their own right. Looking at the other side of the end, we really need to engage authorities, stakeholders, decision makers in high level spaces, looking at global, regional, national, even to community levels. We really need to really engage stakeholders. How best can they meaningfully and inclusively engage young people in conversations that really matter to them? Looking at issues to do with HIV and AIDS, we really need that support from the stakeholders to really involve young people in those cases, whether they are at budgeting processes, the Ministry of Finance and Economic Development. How best are they involving young people into these conversations? Looking at the donor world, for example, if you are in Zimbabwe, looking at the EU Commission, looking at the Swedish Embassy, all those big players in the field, how are they engaging young people? Are they inclusive in their engagement with young people? We really need to find those ways, and we really need to really build the capacity of those who really, have the opportunity to influence actions in communities, to bring on young people into conversations that really matter to them. I think you have noticed we have been in COVID-19. Now we are post COVID-19. How best can these players, big players, ensure an equitable recovery from COVID-19? Is it inclusive? Are young people involved in the recovery process? How best can they really involve young people in the recovery process, whether it's government, whether it's donors, whether it's private institutions? So it's really diverse. So we really need to, if we are to end AIDS, for example, by 2030, we really need to look on the both sides, build the capacity of young people, build the capacity of those in power, the authorities, the local leaders, donors, and so forth. So we really need a comprehensive approach in terms of handling this.
Man, I couldn't have said it any better, dude. It's like and COVID-19 showed us very clearly that this isn't about overcoming one issue. This is about empowering and educating a community of young people, but also a top down and bottom up approach of how we face challenges in life. And it's yeah, if we're going to set our goals to end HIV and AIDS by 2030, and that's been our focus for a long time. And then all of a sudden, right, you're like, guess what? 3 years ago, another pandemic, COVID-19 shows up. And now we took so much of that education and that experience and research that went into HIV and AIDS, and it really helped inform a lot that went into COVID. And so this is, I absolutely love this because it's really getting down to the brass tacks of how do we create a human experience that is inclusive of awareness and of a collaborative nature and an openness to learn and grow and be self-critical in the process, to challenge how we overcome different hurdles that come towards us. And it's like, look, it could be a global issue like COVID-19, or it could be like something you're dealing with at home in a relationship. At the end of the day,
Yeah.
it's behavioral and it's decision making, and it's making sure that you're doing that from a positive place.
Yeah, I really agree with you there. I think we learned from COVID-19 that we really need to work as a collective. We really need to not to leave anyone behind, because with COVID-19, I was looking here, like, it doesn't select whether you are old, young, whoever you are, it doesn't select everyone. So for us to really, combat COVID-19, we really need to work as a collective. That was a big lesson. So we really need to work in that way. Involve everyone. Do not leave anyone behind. It's not about, like what you said, tackling one challenge, but educating young people to be responsive, educating young people to be able to see issues happening around them. How best can they act in a positive way to tackle those issues? So I think it was a really huge lesson from COVID-19 that made us realize that we really need to work as a collective. For example, we can't involve this young person because she's young. We can't involve them in that issue. But COVID-19 taught us that young person can really carry the virus and transmit to everyone else. So education needs to be inclusive. Everyone needs to be reached with education. Everyone needs to be reached with information that really empowers them to take action in their different communities. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And I know, like, even you go back to the beginning of like the HIV/AIDS epidemic, and you think about some of the mentality that people had, and it still exists, right? Stigma still exists. And you sit there and you're like, well, unless I'm infected or affected, this will never touch me, and it's not my problem. And I think COVID-19 also changed that perspective, where now it's like, well, wait a second, like, this is something
Yeah.
that's a connector, where it was a truly global experience. And I'm a very spiritual person. I believe that these types of things happen for reasons, as an opportunity to give us a chance to unite as humanity, and to really evolve in not only our spirituality, but our conscious effort to become better in this experience as in our lives. And I think that COVID-19 has a lot to teach us about our process forward in HIV and AIDS. I mean, I just turned 38 yesterday.
Oh,
And
happy birthday. Happy belated birthday.
thank you. Thank you. And wait, how old are you,
Yeah.
Maxwell?
I'm 32.
All right. So we're not too far off. But
Not
I
too
look at
far.
it not too far. But I look at it and I'm like, all right, man, like, I'm not necessarily like a spring chicken anymore. Like, I'm getting up. You see, like, I got some gray hair coming in
I
here.
can see that.
And so I
Yeah.
look at this, and I think about the idea that, like, walking, and I want to know from your experience with it within COVID-19. But like, for me, as an HIV positive individual, to like watch people like literally Instagram themselves getting a vaccine. I mean, that was kind of the experience here in the US, and it was a
Yeah.
divided community. But I was seeing how this tool was really
Yeah.
being used to give community a voice, and allowed people to say, if they choose, I'm not afraid to be able to stand up for my health and the health of my community. Were there experiences through COVID-19, like in Zimbabwe, where you felt that the community was leveraging technology or approaching COVID-19 in a way that's very different than what we've seen for HIV?
Yes, correct. I think that's the phones really worked well. These social media platforms, they really helped to improve in terms of vaccination, that's safeguarding the health of others, of our loved ones. I think that really worked well here. Like what you said, here people would take selfies, getting jabs, post them on social media, on their WhatsApp statuses, on their Facebook pages, Instagram pages. There was a different divided voices or opinions here in terms of vaccinations that started here. But at the end, I safely say Zimbabwe, the majority of people got vaccinated here in Zimbabwe. At first, a lot of people were very hesitant in terms of getting vaccination. I think it was due to misinformation. This technology, it was very helpful. On the other hand, it brought about a lot of misinformation around COVID-19. So it really derailed, the chances of really getting a lot of people vaccinated during COVID-19. But I can tell you that a lot of people were vaccinated, especially young people. You would really find that was very interesting, because the majority of young people were vaccinated. The elderly, those were the ones who were very hesitant of getting vaccinated. And the young ones, obviously, there were some kind of restrictions to say it's from 18 and upwards. Yeah. So I think technology and social media really play a huge role here in Zimbabwe in terms of getting everyone vaccinated. And it was really an eye-opener to really say, the same way we responded to COVID-19, why can't we replicate the same way and respond to other issues in terms of HIV that's happening? Why not, include all those things? Young people getting tested for HIV and AIDS, whether we are pushing for self-test kits, young people taking selfie with their self-test kits saying, I have been tested, have you? Pushing other young people to take the right decisions with regards to their health. So yeah, technology really played a huge role here.
To know that, within your community and that Restless Development is empowering young people to make this their narrative. That's probably the most important thing that we can be doing. And that's where I personally, it's seeing how many people lined up on the streets to get vaccines that weren't hiding, that weren't scared about other people seeing them, taking care of themselves. This is a very different world than I experienced growing up as an HIV positive youth when I was 12, 13, 14 years old. So yeah, man, you said it best. Youth leads the conversation, and I'm very interested, and I want your take on this too. I'm very interested to see how youth choose to impact the look and the language and the feel around HIV and AIDS, and what this discussion represents, leading to that goal of ending this by 2030.
Yes. Young people really have a big role to play in this. I think what's really needed to be done is really understand the context, where young people are from, where are they, what kind of language do they use, what kind of language is easy for them to use. We really need to tailor-made interventions, issues, or innovations that will bring in to suit the local context for young people. You'll find if you go to another country, if you talk about jabs, other young people will not be comfortable to say, I got a jab. But we really need young people to develop their kind of lingo that they really understand each other. That will help us really to dwell into them and into the conversation. That will really help to bring them into the conversation.
Look, we're coming up on time. I want to continue this conversation with you. I think you are clearly a leader in the discussion within your community as a Restless Development representative, and within GenEndIt. But what we're talking about here, this is much bigger than any one organization. This is youth across the globe being given an opportunity through technology, through policy, through community action, to be able to say, you determine what the language is, you tell the story, and make it an opportunity for them to really embrace that empowerment and take ownership over it. So before we wrap here today, anybody that's listening to this, how do we support you? How do we support Restless Development? How do we get involved in bringing the opportunity to these young generations to really give them the voice that they deserve?
Yes, definitely. I think we really need to have young people shape the conversations, especially around HIV and AIDS. We really need to bring in young people into this conversation, let them take the lead, let them get involved, have some kind of co-creation of innovations, ideas on how best we can do that. As Restless Development, we have so many methodologies that we use, so many ways of engaging with young people that partners can really tap into. Restless Development is really a generous agency that really believes in sharing our methodologies, how best we engage with young people, whether we are conducting research, collecting evidence. We have our youth-led research methodologies. Those are some of the methodologies that partners can really use. How best can we meaningfully involve young people into the conversation? How best can we meaningfully engage young people into decision-making platforms, spaces that are happening world over, globally, even in the community at the grassroots level? How can we involve young people from the community deep down to really involved in the budgeting processes that are happening for the nation? You know, those kind of conversations. That's how best Restless Development try to deliver our trainings to donors, government institutions, to everyone. We offer a variety of methodologies that we can use to really tap into the power of young people to make positive change or contributions in their communities. I think for us, we really need partners. We really believe in supporting young people, taking the leadership role in addressing issues that have to end, that have to do with ending AIDS by 2030, in addressing issues that have to end with climate change. Those young people who are being affected or infected by HIV and AIDS, they are also affected with different issues. They are not spared from climate change. They are not spared from shadow pandemics that have been brought about by COVID-19. So we really need that support for us to be able to reach that diverse background group of young people. We don't need to leave anyone behind, but with support, I think Restless Development can really go far.
Amazing. Maxwell, it is truly a pleasure to get to know you better, to talk to you about your work. Your perspective is beyond inspiring, man. And it's also amazing. And I think that I just want to shine a light on this for anyone that's listening to this, that like, I think a lot of times on a very basic level, I think we let, whether it's our belief system, our geolocation, our lifestyle, to create a divide or separate us. And what I love is just being able to, I mean, you and I have met once before this, and now it's very clear that we're so similar in our perspective and our hopes and dreams in life, and the way that we want and hope to be able to bring an opportunity to the next generation through a perspective shift, you know, and a behavioral change, and understand that that's a call to action, as you said, to partners, to government, that we need to really go. It's almost like go to this place of, you know, when you say like, you know, the student becomes the teacher, and you sit here and you're like, well, actually, in this context, the student is the teacher. And we need to put the microphone in the hands of the next generation, and not when it's convenient, right? Not when it's just about fundraising. This is about creating advisory committees, advisory boards, about giving a contingent of youth a voice within this decision-making process. So look, step one, anybody out there that doesn't know about Restless Development, you got to check it out, restlessdevelopment.org. When on the site, on the platform, Maxwell, what are the best ways, other than some education, reading, becoming aware? Are we donating? Are we sharing information? What are the actions that you want to see people take when engaging with Restless Development?
we want people to donate, to some of the interventions that we are doing. We want people to use the methodologies that we use to reach a diverse group of young people. As Restless Development, we believe in empowering young people. If we empower a young person, we are building resilient communities, we are building resilient nations who can resile from any issues that are affecting them. So we really need people to help us in terms of resources. We really need support in terms of reaching the diverse background groups of young people in their different backgrounds. We really need people to really check out the materials that are there on our website and use them to engage with young people in their diversity.
You're creating what I would say an amazing groundswell that can grow into an opportunity that can really create a change around the world. Maxwell, thank you for your dedication and everything that you do, not only within Restless Development, but within GenEndIt and your own personal life. I cannot thank you enough. It gives me hope when I say 38 turning gray and I see someone 32 that's just kicking butt and doing a really amazing work and then passing that down to the next generation. So let's do this again really soon.
Thank you, Jack. It was a pleasure talking to you. Yeah, looking forward to the next discussion.
And let's say hopefully that's like in person. I want to come to Zimbabwe. I want to visit you.
Yes.
I want to come see your programs and your experience and have some fun at the same time. So
all right, thank you so much.
All right, take it easy.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.